Got something a little different for you today. In a previous video, Tony and I discussed our recording experience so far and talked a little bit about our hardware. Until recently, I was using the microphone on my headset or the microphone built into the Logitech webcam I'm using. You may have noticed I've got an upgrade. So today I wanted to review that. It's the new Yeticaster broadcast bundle. So currently you can order the same kit directly from Blue on their website for $199, plus shipping and handling. It's also available from Blue on Amazon for the same price, where I purchased mine, and then I was able to use my free shipping benefit. This is how I received it, and as you can see, Zoe was just as interested in checking it out as I was. The smaller package there is the pop filter I ordered. Short little note, I'm not really going to review that because it's a cheap pop filter and they all seemed pretty well to be the same. There were a few that were more expensive and there were a few of slightly different styles, but ultimately it's a little fabric filter in a plastic ring. They're not particularly interesting. I'm pretty sure this just came in the factory box with no additional padding or protections, which frankly I find to be disappointing. I'm not sure if that is the result of Amazon or just how these things are shipped. Ultimately, it is just an entry-level microphone, but at $200, that still represented more than a small investment, and I had hoped it would come in better packaging, to say the least. That being said, as you can see, it is well packaged, and it arrived undamaged. Lastly, here's the whole kit unpackaged and laid out, minus, of course, the USB cord, which in this case was actually particularly long. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 9 feet. So I just left that connected to my computer and set up for ease of putting the microphone back together later. As for the boom arm fully extended, it's fairly long on its own, coming in just shy of about, I'd say, 4 feet. Overall, it's heavier than I expected and feels very high quality, honestly. The 3 friction hinges can be tightened by hand, and as you can see, are large and pretty easy to manipulate. At the end, it has the standard 5/8 inch threading with an adapter for the 3/8 inch threading and a matching locking nut. So it can be used with almost any microphone or shock mount on the market if you want. So you can just buy the compass boom arm on its own and then use whatever other accessories, microphones, and so on. Also, it has a channel that runs along the spine of it with some little plastic clips that hold the USB cable down in the channel, but leave it loose enough yet that it can move around in the channel as you turn and bend the arm to adjust the microphone. It isn't really a feature I saw in almost any other boom, and even if it is just aesthetic, I've found I really like it, and it works pretty well as far as I'm concerned. Now, on Amazon, there was one common complaint about this boom arm mentioned in almost every single one-star review, and in a few of the positive reviews even. When you first take this out of the box, it's really hard to get the arm to bend, and it's even harder to get it to stay put. Now, I had the same experience, and I also read one review where a person claimed that they sheared the head off the tightening screws, just trying to get it to stay in position. Basically, this is because the springs inside of the arm are very strong. The arm itself is rated to hold up to 2.5 pounds to accommodate the relatively heavy Yeti microphone, the shock mount, and pop filters as needed. The fix for this is actually really easy, and it's even mentioned in the manual itself, which evidently most people don't bother to read. Pro tip, anytime I spend more than 30 or 40 bucks on something, first thing I do when I get home is I look through the manual to make sure I don't break it off or shear something off right out of the box. On the bottom of the arm is a screw you can see here. I marked mine with permanent marker so I could count the number of turns and get a little more fine tuning out of it. All you have to do is unscrew this screw and it'll loosen the internal springs, making it easier to bend and position the various joints as you please. I left enough tension to compensate for the microphone itself so that if I loosen all the joints, the microphone doesn't just spring up or drag the arm down to the desk or something like that. So you might need to fine tune it a little bit, so be prepared to pull the arm up, unscrew, put it back down, test it, and so on. Lastly, my only complaint for the boom arm itself is the desk mount. The clamp fell apart within seconds of taking it out of the box, and the T handle itself, that you turn it to tighten it, is this rigid, hard, plastic, immovable T handle. My desk is this really large, old teacher's desk, and while the mount will fit it, I can't tighten it because the handle just hits the side of the desk. Now, this isn't a deal breaker for me because, as you can see from the pictures, I just put a little black pad on the top and mounted it to this board that pulls out on either side of the desk. So it's totally usable. I'm probably going to, in the future, replace that handle with just a regular bolt from the hardware store that's the same size, and it'll just cost a few bucks, no big deal. However, almost every other single boom that I saw had that traditional C-clamp style handle that would slide through the bolt. so you could tighten it and then slide the bar and tighten it, even when directly against, the side of a desk or something like my situation here. It seemed like a really bizarre oversight for what is basically entirely aesthetic reasons. Blue also sells what they call a bushing, so that you can drill a hole in the desktop directly, and then instead of having the desk mount, the arm just goes into the hole on your desk. That's available through their website and possibly some aftermarket dealers, so I didn't look. So you can always go there to get that if you want. Next is the Radius 3 shock mount. Overall, it seems well constructed and fits really well. I have never owned a microphone or a boom or a shock mount or anything like it, so I was a little surprised by how large it is. I honestly didn't expect this size of a disc, but it seems like it's actually a pretty standard size for shock mounts from what I can tell. The only thing I can see about it, which I'm not sure if I really like, is that the inner ring that is supported by these elastic strings, there's actually only two. There's one string that runs around the top and one string that runs around the bottom. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I think a better design may have been to have multiple elastic loops that would separate it more and isolate it better. That being said, it's actually worked really well so far, and I haven't noticed any real transfer of vibrations from my desktop to the microphone, so it does its job well. Finally, there's the microphone itself. Honestly, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it because there's already a bunch of reviews you can watch from other content providers and on the review page itself. That being said, I think overall it's a really good microphone. I'm happy with the sound quality, the construction of it, especially when compared to my previous hardware. It's a lot more robust. So overall, the upgrade from my previous equipment has been really noticeable, and I think it works great. As for the construction that I mentioned, overall the headphone volume knob and gain control move really well and pretty smoothly, though they're basically just plastic knobs. But they're not loose or anything like some other products you might have used. The mode selector, however, on the back is a little hard to move. I know some other people have mentioned that in other reviews. It's just you got to really get a grip on it and to kind of force it to turn. And it's hard to do that sometimes too because it's also kind of a short knob. But honestly, that's not really a feature that I'm going to use that often. And I don't expect a lot of people are going to use it that often. Pretty much you set the mode and probably that's going to be the mode that you're going to be using the most. So it's not really a big deal breaker or a big problem I foresee anybody having. So my entirely novice opinion is that this bundle is great. I would definitely prefer a better desk mount, and there are a few minor tweaks I might make were I the designer, but for creating content and playing video games, this is by far the best hardware I've ever used. So, on an almost entirely arbitrary rating scale, I give the Yeti Professional Broadcast Bundle a solid 13 out of 14 possible stars, or thumbs up, or whatever rating symbol of your choice. Suffice it to say, I've been nothing but pleased, and it is an excellent product for the price.